Title 42 ends yesterday, based upon the rollback of the official government state of emergency because of COVID. We have two things that are going on simultaneously in terms of changes in immigration right now. One is, and I'll start with the this court case. But with that said, that's just a piece of it. It's not the. This is not influence, I think, the generation of this policy, but a similar thing did. Or a similar dynamic, I guess. A Trump appointee from 2019 has temporarily blocked the Biden administration from carrying out parts of its latest immigration plan. The Florida state government, Ron DeSantis, wanted the federal government to stand down from its proposed move to parole migrants crossing the southern border through Texas. And by parole, that basically just means that, like, we only have so many facilities to house migrants. Understand what's going on now. There is going to be a backlog, pent-up demand for migrants to come to this country because, particularly from Central and Latin America, because things are very difficult there, because the dollar is super strong here, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to be getting into like planting. We're in planting season and harvesting season over the next couple of months. And there's a demand for workers as well. And essentially what the Biden administration was preparing was for an influx of asylum seekers. You'll remember that Title 42 essentially allowed U.S. law and international law basically says that if asylum seeker steps 1 foot in the United States, they are required to get due process of their claims for asylum. That process is a court hearing. There's, notions as to what that hearing should be. And that is what they are. That's what the law of the land is. Title 42 is an emergency public health, supposedly, measure that basically allowed the U.S. government to expel asylum seekers without that process. Part of the Biden plan was we're going to have to parole some of these migrants who are, they have to report to, an ICE office. And they're already into the country under the pre-existing policy. And this judge says you can't do that for the next 2 weeks, even though we're now anticipating a big surge. And why did he do this is basically, he says it's the fault of the U.S. government. It has nothing really to do with any of the legality about it. He just feels like the southwest border has been out of control for the past 2 years. And it's about to get worse because of midnight, the Title 42 order expires. And so instead of allowing the government the opportunity to deal with this, he's basically saying, and so we're going to tie your hands in any way in which to address it. Meantime, the way that the Biden administration is going to get around providing this due process, they're doing a couple of things. They're going to slash the amount of time asylum seekers have to find lawyers before their first interview with immigration officials. So it's going to put them under pressure to have that, good representation, or any representation for that matter, when they essentially apply for asylum. They are also going to try and impose a situation where you got to use an app to apply for asylum in a country before you come to the United States. Here's the thing about a lot of these folks. They don't necessarily have apps.
The Samsung Galaxy S22.
The Samsung Galaxy, and there's not necessarily great internet reception where they are all the time. But this is just a way of making it harder and harder for people to legitimately attempt to claim asylum. This was also part of, the Biden administration. On the other end, allowing for more people to come in by plane from some of these countries. But largely, this is a way to zero in on the most desperate, the least wealthy migrants. And, this is also, again, I mentioned this earlier, there's a sort of policy debt that has built up now. Because there's been no mechanism in which to sort of like create a good pathway to citizenship. There's been no funding increases in which to absorb folks into this country. It's unclear whether their policy is going to be withstand legal challenge. I guess it would depend on which judge they go to at this point, because it's more or less a Trump policy. And I don't know. It's a shame. We've completely begun to, well, not begun, ignoring the plight of immigrants, and it's going to get a lot worse in the coming weeks.